right, you listen to two different versions of Love Me Jaja, the remix done by Thames. I know it's one that a lot of people are conversant with, but we have to take you back in time to the original of it and bring you back to, well, the present, 7 minutes after 5. And as I mentioned at the start of Hard Facts, that our focus will be on the Parliament, the National Assembly. We're still in the spirit of celebrating our democracy, and we're looking at some of those key pillars that make up a democratic system of government, or democracy properly, if you intend to run that kind of system in your country, which Nigeria does. And the different arms and tiers of government are also critical in the structure that is established for any democracy, to see how governance is run at a different level. For the arms of government, you know, we have the executives, we have the legislature, we have the judiciary. The tiers are federal, state and local government. And our focus and conversations today, we're going to look at the Parliament, the National Assembly, and would take our time to look at the state assemblies. It's we don't pay attention enough to what they're doing, but they're also lawmakers. They're also legislating at the state level, and it's important to also scrutinize how they add to the pool and to the entire mix of the democratic system that we practice, because what they do also make or mar our democracy. People talk about the dividends of democracy. How do you even know that you're reaping and enjoying the benefit of it if good laws are not made and the right people are not there? Well, that's what we're talking about with our guest. He's the founder and executive director of OrderPaper. Mr. Epia is here with us. Good afternoon and happy Salah to you.
Good afternoon. Happy Salah to your listeners and to your good self.
Thank you so much for making it. I always feel guilty when it's a holiday and we bring people into the studio, but thank you for making it into the studio today. So, yes, in the spirit of democracy, I would love to get, just to start off the conversation, to get your opinion on how we've fared. We're looking at 25 years of democracy, and we know that the kind of laws that we make, our constitution, the laws that we make, the separation of power, civic rules and responsibility, due process, fundamental right of humans are all critical component of it. But looking at it from one aspect that I know that you are invested in, the Parliament, the National State Assembly, how would you say we've fared in the 25 years of unbroken democracy that we've had?
It's a multi-barrel question.
I know, right? It's layered.
I'll try to break it down within the time that I have. First of all, I think that conversations around the extent of the number of time that we've been able to sustain democracy, 25 years, silver jubilee of unbroken, practice of civilian rule. The conversation tends to focus on just that, time element, the sustenance, and that's because we say unbroken because we've had cycles of elections. We have not had interruptions of the government. So yes, we could say it's noteworthy. It's something worth celebrating that we have had an unbroken run for 25 years, and it shows to us that yes, we may have completely, dropped the toga of military rule in this country. That's a great thing, but democracy is not all about elections or about, the conduct of elections, periodic elections. That is just one component. Democracy promises, lots of liberties as to human rights, liberties to environmental rights, to economic rights, liberties that should be protected by the law and statutes. Liberty to freedom of assembly, of movement, of speech. These are the core ingredients that should not, be compromised when you are discussing, democracy and its benefits. And so the question should be, we had these sufficiently enjoyed by citizens, whether those who are in leadership and those being led. That's what we have seen. If we critically examine this question, then we may not be wise. We cannot say yes. all is not well, we also cannot say all is well. It is hard to think that, 25 years down the line of democracy, there are still protesters who protested 4 years ago, 4 years ago. They are still behind bars. They are still, in some form of, imprisonment or the other, legally or otherwise. So that's the key element of democracy that is being denied, whether we like it or not. And because these things happen, they also is a demonstration of how, how stunted the parliament also can be reasoned. We've had 6 or so assemblies from 1999 to now. We have seen turnover of members of the National Assembly. We have seen some growth. We have seen a trajectory of improvements, in engagements in governance. But we have not seen a parliament, a National Assembly that is hell-bent on protecting and promoting the rights of its constituents of senators and members of the House of Representatives. Well, it's a case, it's a function of the entire political class, though. Whether you're in the legislature, you're in the executive as an appointee or an elected governor or president, we have not seen, hardly have we seen that, extraordinary, promotion of citizen interests beyond and above personal interests in this country, and that's a shame.
Indeed. But let's take a step back and also really interrogate the role for people to truly appreciate where the parliament fits in the democracy, the importance of having a very strong national assembly or state assembly at this point in time.
The parliament is the fulcrum of democracy, especially representative democracy in the presidential type that we have in this country today, because it represents the interests of citizens. You have 109 senators who come from 109 senatorial districts. 360 members of the House of Representatives come from that number of federal constituencies across the country. So they carry on them the mandate of their constituents. So that representation that they bear is not for themselves, it's for the people that they represent. So the question should be, how well have they delivered on their representation function? But then that is one aspect. If you look at the broad, duties of the legislature that relates to lawmaking, performance of oversight functions, and of course representation that I just mentioned, the examination of performance should also be along those two other lines. How well have we seen National Assembly, the state legislatures, deliver on legislations that are of benefits, that improve the lives and living conditions of citizens? How well have we seen the legislature and legislators hold the executive to account? Let's look at the theoretical foundations of representative democracy and start with us understand it better. Because you have 3 arms of government, like you have stated. They exist to provide what we call separation of powers, so that we do not have, what may approximate to a monarchical system of government. So you have powers separated amongst and between these 3 arms of government. And separation of powers willy-nilly goes with what we also call the principle of checks and balances. So that the National Assembly or the legislature, as it were, has a function to also provide some checks where there are possible excesses from the executive and even from the judiciary. That is why you see them perform what you call quasi-executive and quasi-judiciary functions, like the confirmation of presidential nominees and ministers. That is one of the measures put in place to provide a check, so that the president or the governor is not at total liberty, unrestrained liberty to just appoint anybody. Those persons have to be, they have to be scrutinized to be sure that they are fit for the offices for which they have been appointed. That is why even for the removal of the president, the legislature does not have full, control over that process. They have to bring in the judiciary. There has to be a panel constituted by the judiciary at the federal and state level. So these are elements, examples of checks and balances. Why do we have that? So that there is no, disregard, there is no overreach by any of the arm of government over the order. Why? Because the interest of citizens is what is paramount. Be able to protect and promote their interests. Because legislators represent that interest. That is why I said they are the fulcrum of a representative democracy as we have it.
But you get to hear some Nigerians, not every single person, saying we don't feel like we're being represented. It feels like the executive and the legislature, depend on how the leadership is constituted, are just the partners. On this, it's more of what the executive wants and no recourse. I mean, there are certain bills that have been passed that it feels like no legislator has gone back to his constituency or senatorial district to say, what do you think of this? Let's call it town hall and get your opinion. I don't know, the law does not mandate them every single time to have to do that, but there are times where you need to feel the pulse of the people before certain positions are held or even certain positions are taken in any bill or proposal in the first instance.
The law actually mandates them to consult,
Every single time?
Yes, every single bill that has to be passed in Parliament. And when I say the law, it may not be the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I know for sure that the rules of Parliament, the rule book of the House of Representatives and the Senate mandates that for every bill to be passed, it must go through a public hearing process. It has gone through second reading. It is referred to a committee and then a public hearing must hold. That is where citizens are consulted, stakeholders are brought into a room and, their policies and opinion on the bill, on the proposed legislations are taken into account in the passage. So we must not, we should try and, discountenance that, because it makes them also feel like they have a right to get away with certain things, You do not pass a bill as critical as, changing the national anthem of a country without consulting citizens.
It just came out of the blues out of nowhere.
So that's one of the very difficult challenges that we see in this democracy, especially with respect to the current National Assembly. What happened to the need to even consult extensively even within the executive arm of government? Would have seen a sustained process of consultation, of sensitization, maybe by the National Orientation Agency. But it has to do with the national ethos of the country. It has to do with what holds us together. The thing, that's the anthem, is something that enables us to, demonstrate, if you like, the spirit of nationalism. So if people do not agree with the content of the anthem, there's a problem. We have seen situations where people say, this anthem, I'm not going to respect it, Yes, it's a law that may not be right. It's also because those charged with the responsibility of making the laws have also not done the right thing. So yes, clearly the National Assembly and state legislatures generally have a mandate to consult citizens. And when they don't do that, or do that sufficiently, that's where the impression comes to say, they don't represent people, they represent themselves. The president wants a bill, he wants a law, he calls the president of the Senate, and, in a matter of days, hours, the bill or the law.
Second, third reading instantly.
Everything is can be sped up, Now, it's not in all cases. We must also be fair. There have been cases where, the National Assembly, for one reason or the other, have also say, look, we have to go through thorough scrutiny on this matter, and we have seen certain presidential nominees that have been rejected at Parliament, yes. So, but the rule should be that in all cases there should be thorough scrutiny. There should be a situation where citizens are consulted, legislators go back home to their constituencies, sit with them, speak with them, and receive their feedback on proposed legislations and the kind of representation they want to offer when they come back to state capital or to the federal capital territory, as the case may be. But we don't see that. So this is why, again, one of the clear reasons why citizens continue to feel alienated from government, from their representatives. And of course, that distrust between governments and the governed continues to widen. You do not blame citizens for that.
Yeah. All right. Because they are the ones who, how they say the House of Reps directly connected to the people. So you expect that the people should get some update or should get some bit of a knowledge of what it's about before It's still through several readings and the likes of it. That's perhaps something that we also need to check moving forward, because we need to see how the representatives are more in touch with the reality on ground with the people. I know half the time I've been privileged to interview a few who tell you, it's always about money. Because half the time there's always that concern of going back. There is more of the demand from the people to intellectually interrogating certain things, but that's not an excuse. If there's a provision that you should run it by your constituents, then you should do that. So perhaps that's in the future ways that we can correct things and improve them and make them a bit more inclusive for us. But talking about inclusivity, this is not really inclusivity. This is one area that a lot of people have come up with. And over time, I've heard Nigerians say that it's a bit too bulky. They don't feel connected to their reps or even the senators who are in the red chamber, and they feel like perhaps we declutter a little, and that this bicameral structure isn't really it for us. One, to cut down the cost of governance, because we see what is being spent to just maintain the National Assembly when it comes to their luxury vehicles and the likes of it. And a lot of people have thrown it out there that perhaps we should have a bit more trimmed down to a unicameral system of a parliamentary system in Nigeria, where we just have one instead of, the two chambers that we have, the red and the green. We should just have one, either House of Representatives. Do you think Nigeria is matured enough for that, or it will be to any degree effective in this country? Because we're actually quite diverse people.
That's the point to make. We're very diverse people, and that diversity must be represented in the spirit of inclusivity. However,
it's expensive.
It's expensive, and governance is also not cheap, to be honest with you. It's the construct, by any administration that shows a willingness, a political will to cut down the cost of governance. Is very important. But before I dwell on this, in some detail, I'd like to just quickly dash back to the point you made about, yes, legislators have a mandate, as I mentioned, required by statutes to consult, but there are two sides to the coin. Okay. If citizens don't want to engage, or they rather prefer engagements that are pecuniary in nature, you can also not blame the legislators. If citizens continue to make the wrong sets of demands on their senators and members of the House of Representatives, it does two things. Either would put them away completely because they can't meet those demands realistically, or they just come back and meet those demands and, of course, move away from their core responsibilities and duties, and then we're all back to the issues of, that deficit in governance and delivery of democracy dividends. So it's two ways, and one of the things we continue to do at OrderPaper is to let citizens know that you should be making the right demands of your legislators, asking the right questions by providing the right awareness and sensitization.
Can we go on a very quick break? We'll take it off after this break.
Sure.
Stay with us.
Here you go, dear.
Mom, you didn't add milk.
No need to. Taste it and see why.
Wow, but how?
Is it milky?
Very.
Is it creamy?
Yes.
That's Milo 3-in-1 milky and creamy for you. It's so milky. I don't need to add more milk.
I love it, Mommy.
Give your kids the new Milo 3-in-1, milky and creamy. It's truly milky. It contains calcium to help your child win every day. Milo, energy to go further.
Milo. Clean water, electricity, and good roads are made possible by your tax. Hey, your tax made it possible. Hey, education, security, and healthcare are made possible by your tax. Hey, your tax made it possible. The car runs when you turn it on. I can't stop when you switch it on. Our hospitals are open with doctors and medicine on the air. Our roads are good and safe in the city and out. Our neighborhood taxes every day and night.
Yes, the tap will run when you turn it on. The light will come on when you switch it on. Our roads will be good and safe. Hospitals will open with doctors and medicine. Our city will work well because you pay your tax. Pay your tax always. Let's get more done in the FCT. This message is brought to you by the FCT Internal Revenue Service.
So free.
Enjoy the Ogbonge creaminess wey dey for cowbell. Cowbell gets vital rich wey dey make body kampe. E still get vitamin B9 wey dey support brain development. Try cowbell today for your tea, cereal, akamu, and any other food that you take like am. Cowbell, so creamy, so good.
Savings that bring you home.
Kids, this is our new home.
Dad, our new house is big.
Savings that support your joy.
Congratulations, you've become parents.
Savings that free your creativity.
Camera rolling and action.
Achieve much more with AXA Mansard Money Market Funds. Open an account today to enjoy competitive returns on savings. Track daily interest with ease. Prompt liquidation without penalties. Transact online and via USSD. Visit www.axamansard.com today.
Please read the prospectus and where in doubt, consult your stockbroker, fund or portfolio manager, accountant, banker, solicitor, or any other professional advisor for guidance before subscribing.
Guy, what do you think about Euro's finest? For example, this Aston Martin. England's hottest. Small body, big engine. Like Saka in the box 18. Saka! Look at this German machine. Benzo. Tough like Rudiger. There he goes. Stop it.
If the boys are this excited, it must be Showmax, where football is made in Europe and lived in Nigeria. Catch Euro 2024 on Showmax Premier League. Subscribe now from 2,900.
This is Nigeria Info. Nigeria Info.
All right, we're looking at the role of the Parliament, the National Assembly, the State Houses of Assembly in our democracy. We're talking with the founder and executive director of OrderPaper, Epia, on this very important conversation. And yes, just before the break, we're getting a few of your thoughts in. You wanted to address the one about the campaign. If people don't want to engage, then what can they do? I think it even goes days back to when they campaign, the kind of campaign promises made. So expectations are,
misplaced. The communication is wrong, so expectations are misplaced. The legislator has no business going on the campaign trail to say he's going to do this, build roads and provide markets, and build hospitals. That is not his remit. He's able to say, for instance, that I'm sure I'll try and facilitate this and that to the constituency. I am going to make laws that will ensure that government has a duty to fix this number of roads, to build this number. Those are the kind of rhetorics. Those are the kind of communication. So I think it goes back again to the beginning of the process, the campaigns. What are they saying? Political parties have a role to play here because the parties, of course, they are the vehicles for political mobilization and the vehicles for attaining power. So that's another conversation. But the thoughts about inclusion and diversity, that you mentioned around, do we need to shrink Parliament into unicameral as a structure? It may have its advantages, but my point is that, yes, it may appear that it suits the argument of reduction in cost of governance, but it doesn't quite address, the intricacies of Nigeria's diversity. Nigeria is very large, the population is big, and we do not have that. We're already not able to deal with that complexity. Parliament has a unicameral structure as we have it. It's an attempt to deal with that, complexity and give everyone a fair sense of representation. It may not be completely fair. So if you have just a Senate, for instance, that has, equal representation, 3 senators per state, how do you account for states that are smaller than others? And that's what the House of Representatives does. So representation is with respect to landmass and population. That's why you have 6 also legislators from Bayelsa State, and you have 24 of them from Kano and Lagos. So if you had just one unicameral legislature, how do you deal with that level of diversity, and spread? So it makes sense to retain what we have. I think that in retaining it, however, we can reform. We can be able to cut down the cost of governance. We can be able to say, look, there are certain things that we can deny ourselves as leaders in Parliament. For instance, the easy one is luxury cars. And it's easy to counter argue that.
Get the country talking every single assembly when this SUVs, vehicles come on board. Nigerians get very vexed.
They get very vexed, but they're also not addressing the vexation correctly. And this is the point that legislators also make, that I am, a representative. I am a distinguished senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Also, I'm entitled to some decent level of, mobility. Why should the senator not be able to have that when a minister of the Federal Republic has, a fleet of cars? And by level of protocol, really, political, hierarchy, the National Assembly member is higher than a minister because he represents directly the people. Represent the voices and the aspirations of the people. So that argument is valid. So when they point to that, you really can't, so that's why I said Nigerians also have to look at these things and address it holistically. The government, the executive should cut down the cost of governance. We should reduce the size of those convoys that we have. We should reduce, the travels, the foreign trips. We should cut down all of those. We should cut down on medical tourism. If we decide that, okay, look, all of these monies we spend on medical tourism, let's use it to fix our hospitals, we'll maybe making some progress. The monies we spend on foreign education for children of the rich and those in political office can help to, fix the educational system. These are the kind of demands that Nigerians should make. And if that demand cuts across, so not just focusing on the legislature, it will make a lot more meaning and a lot more, it will appear fair and just to the legislators themselves. So the question about whether we want to cut down, to a unicameral legislature, my opinion is that is not, it appears fanciful, but that is not what we need because it will not adequately address Nigeria's diversity.
All right, pipe dream for those who are cooking it up. I think it's born out of that need to see how we can cut down, because we don't feel people are represented as such, so we might as well just cut down the waste as it's perceived. But yeah, it might sound attractive on the surface, but there are a lot of rooted issues to contend with before we can get it right on that front. Talking about getting it right, okay, I noticed that we have to say, maybe we're in the federal capital, so our eyes are on the center, and the same thing all over the country. We're looking at what's the president doing, what is his policy, what's his program, what's his agenda. At the state level, I feel like we're cutting governors a lot of slack, but we're not talking about them. We're looking at the state assemblies right now. They are also very instrumental in this conversation when we're talking about democracy, because we run a federal system. And we have other federating units, the state, and they also have their state houses of assembly. They also legislate for the state within what is provided in the concurrent list and all of that and the other areas. Do you think we pay enough attention and interrogate really the laws that are coming from the state level and even how they conduct themselves at the state level, really, in the grand scheme of things? We don't, and it's a shame, because that's where for a federal system that we claim to operate, that is where a lot more attention should be focused. And one thing that we also must give to the current administration is that they've been able to kind of allow for, federal allocations to flow, to be increased, and there's some level of, there's still difficulties across board, but we have seen that it was better than what we had, in recent times. That's where the attention should not be. What happens to all those monies? Why are governors consistently saying that they can't pay, 50,000 or 50,000 naira minimum wage? What are the legislators at the state level saying in all of this conversation? And these questions are important because we are now in a legal regime where the state assemblies have financial autonomy. And this is critical because before now and before 2022, when we achieved that, legislators were hamstrung, state legislators, and the state legislature, was completely hamstrung because they operated at the beck and call of state governors. Governors were overlords, but with that autonomy, which is a law, really. And this goes to make the point also about it's not the law or lack of it thereof, but it's the implementation of the law that's actually a problem in this country. When people say, let's go back to unicameral, let's do unicameral legislature, let's go back to parliamentarism, let's do regional governments, is that when the same politicians that we have would obey the laws that we're talking about? If we had a law on states' autonomy for state legislatures, for instance, that allows them to be able to stand up
and do their job without fear or favor, without having to look over their shoulders. What is the governor going to say? Is that being implemented? Well, in this country, when the last administration, implemented what we may call local government autonomy, even went as far as issuing an executive orders, what happened? Do we still have any form of local government system in the country? It is the political class, the rapacious political class who are determined to retain their profligacy at the expense of the people. They are the issue. So it's not really the law or lack of it thereof. It's the operators of the law. So if we have state legislatures, and legislators at the state levels that are not able to deliver on their mandate, it is not because the law has not enabled them to do so. It is because they have also, of course, acquiesced and submitted themselves, to the political dynamics in the states. And this is where citizens should also be sensitized and say, look, now we know these things, and can we now begin to, like you have said, focus some more attention, at the subnationals, at the state, levels? Why are the governors, having it so easy in getting loans to run the states? Every money that is borrowed should be approved, thoroughly scrutinized. Those proposals should be thoroughly scrutinized and approved by the state assemblies before it's even brought to Abuja, because any external borrowing, of course, both for the federal and state governments, must go through the National Assembly. But we don't see that, and that's what you see happening playing out in Kaduna State today. Yes, some people have said, and I do agree with them, that it appears that the state legislature in Kaduna is, speaking up its muscles, better late than never. Why didn't he do this, in the last administration? But it is doing something now in any case. So those are the kind of, what you may call, sunshine conduct, decisions and activism, legislative activism from the state that we may want to encourage, so that other states also see, look, you can't just keep doing these things. You can't just do these things and get away with it, to plunge us into debt and more debt. There are nothing to show. There is nothing to show for what all these monies have been spent on, except corruption, and more corruption. So state legislatures, I agree with you, they need to receive a lot more attention from citizens, because a key component, a vital component of our national resources go back to the states.
Indeed.
They also some of them are supposed to go back, of course, to the local government. But that conversation, I see that the federal government has taken, state governments to court to see if they can rectify that, But again, all of that again speaks to, the propensity of the political class to play games with the intelligence of Nigerians. What happened to that executive order? It can be enforced. Yes.
The big question is, that's why it's an executive order, right? Enforce it. He has that power at that point in time. But there
was even the NIFIU that was, came around that time and saying, okay, look, they are monitoring, allocations, and then why was nobody taken to court? They have left offices as governor. Why are we not seeing any action from them? Look at what is playing out in Kogi State. We've seen lots of drama and motion, but we ain't seeing movement yet, with that governor, that ex-governor, as it were. So all of these, again, appear to be, playing around with the intelligence of Nigerians, and it further widens that gap between the governed and those being governed. And it gets to a point where Nigerians are so, overwhelmed. They don't know what to do, and then they become like, okay, it is the one that I can see, that I have to hold. Even if I have to ask the wrong questions, even if I have to make the wrong demands, it's a vicious circle, unfortunately.
Indeed. Yes, you can join the conversation if you're willing to voice your thoughts through our conversation on the National Assembly and democracy in Nigeria, as we look at from the national level to the state, and showing that lots of attention needs to be paid at what the state does. I remember some time back where some states were approving lifelong benefits to governors once they leave office, their deputies and speakers at the state level. And Nigerians are saying, how disconnected are you from reality, giving so much largesse and benefit to the detriment? And in some of these states, they could barely pay minimum wage at that point in time when you couldn't come up with a strong position. But then we saw outcry from citizens enough to force the hands of the state assembly. So bringing us back to something I know that you're also big on in OrderPaper, bringing citizens into the mix, to saying you have a strong role to play in interfacing with your parliamentarians, either at the state or the federal level. And let's look at where they fit into all of this. Yes, we've talked about what they do, what the law provides that they do. But let's look at how people and citizens of Nigerians can interface effectively. So it won't be a case like you say, it's what we have at hand, or we might ask the wrong question and all of that, but it's not moving us forward if we continue to ask the wrong question and do it the wrong way.
Citizens, I think that greatly underestimate the agency of citizenship that they have, the power of, they say the office of the citizen is the highest in the land, and that is true. Nothing can be truer than that.
It doesn't look like it's true in Nigeria.
Because citizens have subjected themselves or submitted themselves to, the overriding power of, governments, unfortunately. And submission is not necessarily, by saying, okay, look, we surrender to you, we submit to you, and they make an affirmation or something. It's by, the actions and inactions. Why are citizens unable? What stops them, for instance, from just monitoring what's going on in Parliament, in the state houses of assembly and in the National Assembly? And monitoring could just be like being aware of what bills are being debated. These are things that we regularly provide updates on at OrderPaper. Being aware of what motions are being taken on, in plenary, being aware of what committees are saying. Sometimes public hearings are actually announced and citizens and stakeholders don't show up. So being aware and taking advantage of that awareness.
Yeah.
So, for instance, citizens have a right, to observe plenary at the National Assembly, because there is a place called gallery for members of the public. Have citizens taken that, pain to even find out how to access
citizens
that
facility?
As
individual or as a group? Because you have civil
groups.
Society organization and the media who are
Either
present
way,
there.
so civil societies represent citizens, right? And citizens also have that liberty to go and observe. It's easy to throw up the challenges, throw your hands up in the air. I can't even access the National Assembly. These are valid concerns. But the more we have these conversations and demand to say, look, because I have a representative in the Senate, I have a right to the National Assembly. You see that big square, that big, circle, in front, just before, the chambers, just before the White House, the National Assembly. It's instructive. It's, it's symbolic rather, because that is where citizens of all shapes and sizes from everywhere are allowed to come in and congregate and make demands of their legislators. That is why there's a protest. That's where they gather and they are addressed by legislators. I'm not saying that it's a matter of protest, but citizens, the way the institution is programmed and built actually allows for all of these facilities and facilitation to happen. Citizens may not be aware. When we say they become aware, are they actually using it? And you may not have to go to the National Assembly. The information that we put out at your disposal on social media, on our website, the wonderful work you do, on the program all the time. What are they making of the information? In security circle, they say intelligence provided. What do you do with intelligence? We provide political intelligence at OrderPaper. We provide parliamentary intelligence every single day. What are citizens doing with it? It could just be as much as aggregating the intelligence that you have and writing a letter to the National Assembly and publicize it. You are putting pressure on your members of the National Assembly to do the right thing. It's just like you say, okay, look, we are not aware of this bill that you are debating, this budget or this loan proposal from the executive. We do not want it. Put a letter together, put a forum, whatever it is together, and send it. You have made your point. The democracies, the people should have their say, and the majority will have their way, the minority will have their say. But nobody should be denied their say, including those who have a point to make their say. So it's a case of citizens also not using what is at their disposal to demand accountability from those in government. And this needs to stop. It's actually the first place for us to see the kind of changes that we want in this country. We are almost always interested in things that are maybe, let me not say mundane, in things that are not politically inclined, for instance. So you see a lot more engagement, you see a lot more attention provided or given by citizens to gossips, to entertainment, to sports. These are great endeavors, and these are legitimate endeavors of individuals who are excelling their different rights. But the power of decision making which politicians hold is very critical. In fact, is the granddom of all, the success or failures of these other endeavors. So why do you look away from that? Why do you not pay sufficient, sustained attention to that? And that's the problem. Until we change that orientation, and begin to just to write FOIs, write letters, go to the National Assembly, attempt to go. If you have issues, raise your voice about not being allowed to get in to see your senator. And then, sometimes they also feel, this pressure and say, look, we have to let them in to come and see us, So it's like I keep saying, it's two sides of the coin. If you provide a leeway for your elected representatives to treat you badly, they will, of course, gladly grab it and continue to do that.
You know why you were talking? I was just looking at how difficult it is for an average person to interface with someone elected to represent him or her down to like the constituency level. even area council sometimes is difficult, and yet you find people, Nigerians, that have relatives in other countries who will tell you, I wrote to the congressman on this, and I got a reply from the office specifically on that particular issue, promising to address it, and you see concerted effort made. We still have a long way to go.
Clearly we do. But if we don't start from somewhere, we keep saying we have a long way and not doing anything about it.
I like that. We need to start from somewhere so that we don't continue with there's a long way to go. All right, but let's bring you in on the conversation. Call us up on 0700 951 0000. I promise our guest that we're going to let him off the hook early, but pardon us, please. Let's just take some calls in. 0700 951 0000, or you can call via WhatsApp on 0809 9930 137. Hello.
Good afternoon, team.
Welcome to the show.
My name is Dr. Malgide.
Go ahead, Doctor.
From my sincere regard to our guest. He has spoken very well. And I can anchor what he has said on failure of the office of the citizen. We complain, just like our guest explained. We complain about the cars, everything the National Assembly are enjoying. But I have never seen anybody from any state that hold the senator accountable. Say, Mr. Senator, I can't withstand this. Don't use this motto. We have not seen anyone. The funniest thing and the irony of it was that the people that write on New Nigeria, the Labour Party candidates that they won, they are enjoying this like this and they kept quiet. And these are the people Nigerians so much believe that they will change the tide. But unfortunately, they are part of what is going on there. Citizens, as we all say, that we have a lot of work to do, especially at state level. Nobody knows what is going on at the state level. That is whereby you see a governor can bring down the National Assembly or the State House of Assembly. And such can never be done in federal. We have let the state government they are not being checked. They do whatever they like. At state level, they are not even called House of Assembly. Yes, sir. The government can even say that this is what I want, and nobody can challenge him. Whereas at federal, the legislature at national level can still try to challenge presidency.
All right.
But at state level, where we have bulk of things to be done, they are not being challenged. And
all right, sir.
Just like I said, we should try and do what is right at the state level.
Thank you very much. Let's get another caller quickly. Hello.
Your King.
Welcome.
Tony from Galempa.
Go ahead, Tony.
Guess. Good evening. You've spoken very well. I want to find out from you. In America is going to over 300 million. 2 senators from each state. Why should we have 3 senators? Don't you think it's bogus? Don't you think we should draw one senator? America from day one was cost conscious. In Nigeria, our leaders are not cost conscious. Why should we have 3 senators in America? The whole country are like in Nigeria. That is consistency. Governor, every state is a consistency. The rationale in America is that half of the state is a district. In Nigeria, it's 22 improving our costs. founded in 1947 with 28 visions, 1.4 billion. They never tamper with the structure.
All right.
We think this thing. We will create state another government. Don't you think we should draw one? We have 2 senators?
All right, sir. All right, sir. Thank you very much. I don't know if you have time to respond because we're almost out of time, but let's hear this caller. You've been waiting. 1 minute, talk. Make your contribution.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kim, and the guests in the house. My brother, you have spoken. But the truth of the matter is that governance is costly, shouldn't also truncate the welfare of the people. In a place we spend expensively to maintain governance, and at the end of the day, governance does not reach the people. It doesn't make any sense. Left for me, one chamber is okay. There's nothing, we should forego that bicameral legislature and go for a unicameral. And again, it should not be bogus. The truth of the matter is that we are not receiving anything in governance. These guys are not representing anybody. If you have one person that is coming from the state who is sincere, he will represent the people sincerely. If you like, gather them 100 from each state, the way things are run. It does not in any way work for the interest of the Nigerian masses. That is just the truth.
All right, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see other people trying to call us. Pastor TJ, 30 seconds. Hello. Hello. Okay. I tried. Your connection is really poor there. Over to you, sir.
Just sense about why not 2 instead of 3 senators. Again, it shows that we are making the conversation constructive. We're not saying pull down the house, and that's the way to go. It could even be 1 senator. After all, the FCT has a lone senator, representing this huge territory. A lone senator, I dare say, whose voice appears to have been suppressed a lot. You do not pass an appropriation bill for the Federal Capital Territory, and you do not have a say from the senator representing the people because the colleagues, if you like, ganged up together and made sure she didn't have a voice heard. That's shocking to repeat what you just said. Again, it says to me that it's possible to have 1 senator represent each state, and then you have that, equal representation at the lower, where the House of Representatives, the other chamber of a bicameral legislature. This kind of conversations should continue.
Indeed, it should continue. Well, we need to wrap up the conversation now. Our time is up and our guest needs to run. But we want to say, this whole talk about can we impeach a legislator, we'll bring him back some other day and talk about that. But there are real big issues to focus on what they're doing, bills and all of that is going on there that we need to interrogate. And hopefully we'll have you back for those conversations.
I'll be happy to come.
Thank you so much. He's the founder and executive director of OrderPaper. Go check them out. They follow a lot on the National Assembly and give you a platform to really get to know what is going on there as much as you get from the news also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for all the good work that you do.
I appreciate you and enjoy the holiday.
And you too then. Bye.
All right, we'll take a break, commercial, the news, and we'll be back with more. Stay with 95.1 Nigeria Info.